Okay gang, this is the big one. This is going to be more than 50 ideas for Football Manager 2024 captured from other YouTube accounts that we will cite, our own personal database full of ideas, and even the Football Manager subreddit and Twitter feeds. So basically all the ideas that we've seen out there so far for FM24, we're going to rank them. So if you're not familiar with tier lists, S is the best, F is the worst, although we're not going to be too critical of these ideas because they're all pretty good. And then we're going to put in an extra dimension, that is how long we think it'll take to implement these ideas. So whether or not it's going to be in FM24 and ready for the next installation of the game, or if we think it's going to be in 2 to 3, 4 maybe games time in FM25 to 27, or if we think it's going to be more than 5 years away, we'll put it on that third column in FM28 plus. And if it's not really an idea but it's a fix, then it ought to really get into FM24, and we're going to call it out as a fix. So here we go, let's get straight into it with the first idea then. And the idea is improving touchline shouts. So this one isn't unique to FM Immortal, but it is one that we featured in another one of our videos. And what we really want to see is the encourage being discouraged. So everyone uses encourage, probably too often, and we want that to be more dynamic. Next up, we've got an end of season awards night. So this is another one of ours, but I don't think it's as amazing or essential for FM24. I'm going to say put this into the FM25 to 27 box. I'm going to stick this into E. I just think it would be a nicer way of doing the end of season team talk. So it's all well and good having that discussion at the end where you promise what you're going to achieve next year in your own changing room, but why not elaborate on that a little bit, have a bit of a fancy do, vote for your goal of the season, your young and senior player of the season as well, all in one fell swoop. I think an end of season awards night would be good. Next up, we're going to talk about transfer embargoes. So these are kind of currently in the game, so I think it's a bit of a fix, but it's currently not being utilised, I don't think, enough where there is any dispute over financial fair play. Certainly not just for the club that you're running, because obviously you're going to run it very well. Chance of them going under an embargo, it's not an essential and it's not an amazing idea, so I'm going to stick it on the fix and D. Next up, we've got more realistic negotiations. I think this is a fix. I think it's really important. I'm going to put it in as A. My example here is that if there is a club that's looking to offload a player on loan, currently you can come in for £1 under their demands and they will just flat out refuse to accept it. And I think it's just a little bit mistaken that you can't even have any room to negotiate in situations like that. Next up, the big one, graphics, and this is just the pure aesthetics of the game, so what you see during the match, what you're feeling like outside of the match and in the menus. I think this is an important one. I think it can come to FM24 because everyone's talking about it. This isn't our own submission, but it's something that FM Scout and Zealand have all been talking about. It's all over Reddit, so I'm going to stick it in B because it's clearly essential to most. Nothing that I would particularly criticise too heavily, but I do think and recognise that the game hasn't evolved quite as much as it could have. Next, we're going to talk about the realistic chairman mode. So this is essentially a difficulty modifier. The Spurs have got a bad reputation and it stems from their relationship with Daniel Levy, so no manager that's worked for him has had a good time. You should be able to put in a tick box, even if it's just as a one-off, that you're going to have a realistic chairman at the club that you're going for, and that would just mean, you know, more challenges, less budget, more disputes overall, and your relationship with the board coming up perhaps a little bit more in discussion, but just as an actual difficulty modifier, that one. Let's move on though, and we're going to go into spend your wages and lifestyle choices. So I've seen these options being tabled from FM Scout and FMProjects. I feel like it's one for the future. I don't think it's one for FM24. I'm actually going to stick it all the way in FM28, but probably at a D, nowhere higher. Because I don't think that's the reason most players play Football Manager, is to kind of have that kind of Football Manager lifestyle. I think it's more about the job. And But I do recognise, though, that there could be something there with regards to your manager's happiness and managing the way that you're perceived by fans and the board as well. Camera angles, and this is a dynamic panning camera idea that is mine. I don't think it needs to come to FM24. I don't think it's particularly important. I'm going to stick it in D as well. But this is something that exists on lots of games, where you can literally just go anywhere with the camera and see whatever angle you're looking for. I would really like this in replays because I like to see the best view of the goal, and sometimes the default cameras just don't show you that kind of best angle. If you think back to the World Cup in 2018 and Benjamin Pavard's fantastic strike, that was all the more better because the camera was behind the ball when he struck it, and it just looked sublime. And I'd like to replicate that in Football Manager when I see my team score a screamer, and I'd love a pan anywhere dynamic camera angle, please. Next up is an idea of ours, which is just that fans write to you. So you think about your ultras over in Italy. I'm not saying you should get anything threatening from fans, but I am saying that perhaps there's something in the merit of receiving advice or recognising your efforts, or something to the effect of the fans having their say quite bluntly. So I'm going to stick that in the middle, and very middle, because I'm thinking 3 to 4 years time, not necessarily FM24. But yeah, fans writing to you would be a very interesting dynamic. Next, challenge decision / sports interactive feedback. So I would love this option, probably in the game replay screen rather than anything on the main board, but I think Sports Interactive should set this up, so I think it's quite essential, and that is for when something's gone wrong and you just don't feel like the right call was made. It could be an offside. I had one recently where a player controlled the ball, and then a player from behind him came in and finished the goal, and that player was vouched to be offside, and it might just be a match engine / graphics engine clash, but it felt wrong. It wasn't offside, and I would love to have been able to just directly send that to Sports Interactive by way of an email as well, complaining to whatever directive is in charge of the officiating, and just say, look, I challenge that decision, it was wrong. Next, it's a big one that's kind of done the rounds everywhere, so FM Scout had to say something on this, PDubZ as well had something on this, and I know Zealand's talked about it in the past. International management does need to be enhanced. It's a fix rather than anything else, and it's essential, so it's going straight into the A category over on the right, and international management does currently not do enough to entice you in. I don't think it's all well and good when you're managing a club and a country, but there should be a mode where you can just select go straight into country, and you've got a different screen, a different set of menus, and a different and more enhanced user experience for international management. Next up, another one that was on a video recently talked about from FM Scout, and it was tracking your opinions. I think the game does do this to some degree, and therefore I'm going to stick it in the FM24 slot, but I don't think it's essential. So I'm actually I'll put it in E because I'm going to be kind, but it's just essentially what have I said previously on this matter. So when you get that kind of persistent challenging on your opinions of VAR, you can go and see where you stand. I try and answer it the same myself, but it can be feel like a minefield sometimes with the rewording of questions, so it would be good to be able to track what you've said. Next, a revenue stream enhancement. So there's a few permutations of this idea doing the rounds, and I think it's a good one for a game in the near future, so I'm going to stick it in B and in the FM25 to 27 slot. And this is all about how you can basically tailor your own income and get a little bit more revenue from TV. The dynamism there, so that should change a little bit more frequently, and also sponsorships as well. So making sure that you're getting your own level of input into who your club is sponsored by. Next up, a very popular one on the Reddit's Football Manager subreddits, and that is new / more regen faces. So that I feel like it's a fix. I'm going to stick it in B. It just needs to be a little bit more padded out. Everyone looks the same. Most players that I end up buying look like Captain Scarlet. And it's just uninteresting. Next idea is to become an existing manager. So a bit like the FIFA mode here. I'm not so into this because I think Football Manager is really about what you do for yourself and making your own name. So I'm actually going to give it the first F rating. So I apologise to whoever originally put this one forward. It came from a video by PDubZ and it was spotted on Reddit. So I'm going to say it's a couple of years away. Very quick one, altitude. I think that should take effect. I think it's a very good one. I think it doesn't necessarily play in the game now. So if you ever had a game in La Paz for any reason, or if you were going for a training regime, I know that a lot of squads used to go to the Alps in Europe to get fitter quicker. And I think it's a good feature to have in the game as an option when you are at the elite level. Next up, we've got set piece coaches. So yeah, I think this does go high on the essential scale. I think I'm going to stick it in A, but I'm going to stick it here because the first thing that needs to actually be fixed is set pieces. So let's go into that one now. That is my first S. That is for FM24. Everyone talks about it. FM Scout, Zealand, FMProjects, they've all mentioned that set pieces are an issue. Everyone knows that the menu and the kind of available options we have for set pieces is not quite there. So I think that one needs attention from Sports Interactive. Next idea is director of football mode. I think this kind of can be done now, so I'm going to stick it quite low down, and I'm going to stick it in between FM24 and 25 because I don't really mind if that comes now or never. I think it's a case of the game itself becoming more customizable for this to exist. It doesn't have to be a standout mode. Next up is advising new gens on international choices. So I think that the new gens on the game and those that you take under your wing that have come through your academy should seek you out for more advice in general, and telling them which country to go for with regards to where you think they'll get more game time and have just a happier international career. I do like that idea. It's not a great change to the quality of life of the game, but it's certainly something that I can see adding a little bit more with regards to building a relationship between you and your youngsters. Next up, it's designing kits. Now obviously a lot of us will have the kit packs downloaded from sortedoutsI.com. A great location to go to find different packs on faces, kits and everything else, but design kits for me would be a really cool feature, particularly at a lower level club, so one that you don't recognize anyway. If you were at the end of the season available to vote between what you like between 3 options for home, 3 options for away and 3 options for a third kit, I would really like that, and I think it would be a really cool thing to see. Again, AI's use for generating kits would be a really fun thing to do. Probably not actually for FM24 there. I was going to place it there, but it's probably far further down the line when we're clearer on the role of AI and how it can be a little bit more dynamic. Boy and Mascot antics. So I don't want this to happen all that much. I'm going to stick it in the F. It's one of my own ideas. I do like the idea of the odd occasion where an antic from something outside of the pitch can affect the game, only ever so slightly. It would be really frustrating if it came in like a Champions League final and the ball boy wouldn't give you the ball back. But I do think that there's room there for the game to have some more unique elements to matches, and I'm going to stick that one there. The next step is a facilities designer. I think this one comes sooner than designing kits. I'm going to stick it in FM 25 to 27 and I'm going to stick it in C. This is all about you having your say on what facilities specifically you want. So maybe it's another one of those optional things that you delegate otherwise to a lead physio, but I would particularly like to know exactly what I'm doing when I enhance my club's facilities. Next idea is more player roles on and off the pitch. So this is another one of the FM Immortal submissions. I think this just happens naturally over time, but I'd like more roles to choose from when I'm picking tactics, but also more roles in between games. So somebody taking the lead roles in training exercises, somebody being the best for welcoming new people to the club, so someone maybe that's got really high adaptability. I'd like to see just a few more unique things coming through that are important to maintaining the fitness levels, but also the morale of a squad. The next up is manage women's teams. So this one's going in the next game. I'm almost certain of it. Where does it get S or does it get A? I'm going to stick it in A because we've got nothing there at the moment, but 100% sure that that's coming in FM24 anyway, so let's stick it there. Next up is player antics. So similar to the Boy Mascot antics, I would like to see a little bit more of the kind of wind-up merchant stuff flowing through to the game. So trickery just to get a yellow card from a player. Think about your Richarlisons in the season this year, where they were just doing flicks and tricks, standing on the ball waiting for the carnage to unravel. I'd like players that have that kind of attitude to show it up a little bit more in game, and I think it can happen because I think we're not far away from that. So I'm going to stick it just on the border here in the B. Next up is stadium designer. So we've done designing kits, we've done designing facilities, and then this one was very popular again on FM Scout and the Reddit subreddit. So can you have a say on kind of the component pieces of your new stadium, which may take financial input effect, or it may even have an effect on your home team's performance against rivals, depending on if you choose the size of the away team dressing room, for example. I think it would be a nice aesthetic thing as well to bring in. I think it's probably too far away from FM24. I'm going to stick it in the C block of FM25 to 27, please, Sports Interactive. Next, it's going to be a fix, and it's sweeper keepers. I feel like they have just been monumentally catastrophic this year, and I feel like that will get addressed next year. And my prediction, in fact, is that they will be a lot better next year. And that's what happened with wide centre backs in FM22, and they became good in FM23 because fixes were applied to them. Likewise, I think the sweeper keeper this year is going to need some due attention. Next idea is telling off journalists. I really like this idea. I really am sick of journalists in the game, but I don't think it's necessarily amazing or essential. I'm going to stick it in the D block for FM25 to 27. Fantasy Premier League on social media feed. This is one of my ideas. I am going to do a little bit of a crossover video soon with fantasy football and football manager. I'm awful at fantasy football, I have to say, but I've got some good ideas for it and its future. I would like to see the social media feed enhanced. I think it's a really funny part of the game. I think it can happen in FM24, and I'm going to stick it at the top of the D block, I think. Next up, it's resolving promises and disputes early. So this was one of Zealand's big challenges to Sports Interactive around about 2 months ago, I think. But yeah, he was speaking about how it's so frustrating when you're waiting a day or two extra to resolve a dispute, and you have that horrible crossover of the team then being put out by the fact that you have achieved your promise, but there are days remaining on the promise calculator. And when there are days remaining, and then somebody comes knocking with a player offer for someone that's not content at the club, then you can lose out massively from a squad personnel point of view, but also squad morale point of view. So I think it's a fix rather than an idea, and I'm going to stick it in the S category actually, because it's so annoying when you can't resolve a dispute manually by either talking to the player or the player's agent. Maybe you've had a falling out over an in-game decision and you've got a promise to upkeep, but if you have gone well on that promise for a reasonable amount of time and you still have 120 days or something to wait, it's just nonsense and it wouldn't happen in real life. Next up, it's more dynamic player ratings. So yeah, we currently operate, I think, between a 5.7 and a 10, and we never see a 1 or a 2 given, and I think maybe even fans could have a say here. So I'd love to see the fans' player rating of players throughout the season, because I think they could be a little bit more scrutinous, and it would be a different way maybe of gauging who has been good and who has been bad, which doesn't depend on, I guess, the in-game player rating, which actually helps you make decisions. So I think it's one for not necessarily FM24, but certainly FM25 to 27, and I'm going to stick it in the A category.
We are going to pause it there for now, but we'll be back with part 2 very soon.